Hey, Scott from Aristocop.com here.
And Seth from SethMarkwood.com.
Brian Rowley from Growley Leather and or Growley Pipes.
And together, along with you, the four of us, we are Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. Welcome back once again. And good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. So, Brian, I've known him for a bit, but not intimately. His wife is the cousin of one of my bro workers, and really, truly a dear friend of mine. And some of you over on the Aristocob channel or even on the Instagram feed
Breakfast Club channel
have heard of my buddy Briscoe, and he actually competed in one of the corny joke contests I did and did very well, but I disqualified him because we're friends. Anyway, I come to find out from Briscoe that his brother-in-law is a pipe carver. Like, oh yeah, okay, so he knows a guy that whittles, right? And then finally he says, you should really check out his Instagram feed. Okay, what's his name? And it's Growley Pipes. I follow that guy. and then we end up together at his daughter's wedding. And he's like, hey, my cousin and Brian are here. And I got to meet him for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's small world and great to have you here.
Thanks. Good to be here. Anytime I can sit and hang out and smoke a pipe, I'm pretty happy about it. So
excellent. So what qualifies you, much more than the last couple people that we've had on here, is you absolutely are in this industry. You are a pipe carver. You are also, how do you describe yourself in the leather work you do? What title do you give yourself?
Well, owner. So
yeah.
Kind of owner / everything that my wife doesn't do. So yeah, we started Growley Leather 3 years ago. Actually, just a couple days ago. So middle of May, we started Growley Leather, and between her and I and my daughters, we do everything from marketing to making to designing and all that. So I guess if I were to give my title, a title, be like head leathersmith or something if I wanted to sound
head leathersmith. Yeah, I got to that point in my Instagram post the other day, and I'm like, what would you call a leather worker? But a leather worker could be a guy that pokes holes in belts, right?
Yeah.
What you do is far nicer than that. Okay, if we can, I do need to understand the name on your shirt. So that is the name of your business, Growley, and your last name is Rowley.
That's right.
Your first name is Brian. So can
That's
you please explain why it's not Growley?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to my pipe making days. So when I started making pipes and realized the passion was so deep that I was probably going to do it seriously, I decided I had to market myself. And a lot of guys would market with their own names so that people can find them and all that. But I didn't want the pipe making to be about me at all. And so my middle initials, G, for Glenn, and Growley is what came out of it. So I'm still there, but unless you really know who I am, you're probably going to call me, Brian Growley. So, so yeah, and Growley just, I don't know, it was a little more marketable. Just sounded nice. So Growley stuck for Growley Pipes, and then we just rolled with it for Growley Leather. So
I mean, I like it, and you're right. It does sound like it's something real, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then take us back to that. Why did you start carving pipes? I'm assuming you were a pipe smoker?
Yeah, so I started smoking pipe just shortly after college. I kind of missed the fun days of smoking pipe with my friends, but took it up shortly after, and I brought my first ever pipe. So this is a tiny little pipe, very first one I bought, which I broke just a couple of years ago, and it's a King's Cross featherweight, and I had it safely smoking for years, maybe a decade or so, and then broke it just a couple years ago. So, but yeah, I started smoking pipes. I'm a big, I love to find deals and things that are old that can be made new. And so I love going to antique shops and things like that. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, I came across this.
Okay, hold it a little closer to you, further from the camera. There you go. Perfect.
Is that good? Mm-hmm. So this is a Ben Wade, And the Ben Wade, I found out after buying it, it's a Demarcanique, if I'm pronouncing that at all correctly. But this one, I found it was an estate pipe, barely used. And after having someone appraise it, they said it was worth probably $280, $300. And I got it for $15. And I was just enamored by the grain and the natural part of the plateau there. And so I wanted to carve one. So I literally had no idea where to start. Got on eBay, got a block of briar and a stem, and started carving. And
now pre-drilled block of briar, or
no, just a block of briar. And I tried to make the Ben Wade, and so that's what I did. That was my first ever pipe, which is just hideous, but it's smokable. So
I wouldn't call that hideous.
So yeah, that was my first attempt. I did it with a drill, a Dremel, and sandpaper, and that was about it. So I was hooked as soon as I realized I had.
So can you trace along that for me to show me where your draft hole things? Because how in the world did you connect from the bottom of the chamber over to where the stem is?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a optical illusion. So the bowl would go straight in like this, if you can see that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this, even though the stem comes out like that, the smoke hole is going to go a little bit more like that. So, and I'm not sure I'm seeing it right.
So like a Peterson pipe then. Well,
it's basically meaning I don't have any bent holes at all. It's just two straight holes connected.
Yeah.
Which is what makes curved holes, curved pipes a lot harder to do, because you have to, it depends on how much space you have here, right in the middle there. So, however, with that said, newest Growley pipes thought is I have learned some curved hole drilling techniques, which I'm just dying to try. So it's going to open up a world of designs for me, but it's just totally playing around. I've never even tried it before yet. So
are you using a flexible shaft with a bit on the end? No? Okay.
It's not like that.
Okay.
And
Homer and I went down this rabbit hole for a long time once.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, the hard part is you have to, briar's really tough. And so to get a drill bit through it, it's got to be a nice sharp drill bit. But to bend something through it is pretty hard to do. So I don't even know if this will work. I've only got hints and glimpses of guys that do it, because nobody wants to give away the true idea of how you do it. So I've got some thoughts rolling around.
Does it involve heat?
It does involve heat. One of them does, yeah.
Okay,
so,
all right.
So I don't even know if it'll work, but if it does, I'm gonna have some Kirby pipes coming out. So
that'll be cool. So
yeah.
that first pipe that you bought, the one that's broke, did you buy that new at a tobacconist or?
Yeah.
How did you you say? Okay, I want to smoke a pipe. What do you do?
Yeah, well, I had no idea. I had never smoked any tobacco prior to this, and I think I was probably 24, when I bought this pipe. So just complete newbie to it. So I went into this amazing tobacconist in Ohio. Don't even know if it still exists. But they had a huge selection, and basically they had all these open jars, and they said grab a pipe, fill it up, and see if you like it, which was just a great way to experience, the industry of pipe smoking. So I remember looking through the glass case and kind of looking at the pipes, one by what could I afford, and two by what caught my mind and my eye, and that one just stuck out to me. I couldn't even remember what I paid for it, but I bought it, loaded it up with a black Cavendish-based pipe because I like a really solid flavor, tons of flavor. And
you were smelling the jars, and you went for what it smelled good. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so English blends, nope, wasn't interested. They smelled terrible at the time. Went for that sweet smelling black Cavendish and got a bag of it. And yeah, that's where it started. I enjoyed every bit of it, even though I couldn't keep it lit for the life of me. I still really enjoyed it. So
where in Ohio were you?
So it was near Cedarville, because we went to college in Cedarville, Ohio. So it probably would have been Springfield or Dayton, and I don't.
It was the Tobacco Wharf in Beaver Creek.
That's what it is. Yep.
That's the one. Small
Seth and I
world.
Have shot videos there. Yeah, that was our home tobacconist before we moved to North Carolina, and it's still in business. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good.
The way you were describing it sounded just like the tobacco wharf.
I remember it. So everything always is bigger when you remember it in the past. But I remember it being a massive place that allowed you to smoke inside. And
yep.
It was a wonderful place to get started in tobacco. So.
Yep. Still is.
Yeah. Still there.
Is a great. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's fantastic. Small world, Cedarville. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Cedarville.
Did you go to Young's Dairy Farm for ice cream? And
I had my what do you call it? The rehearsal dinner. I had my rehearsal dinner at Young's.
Wait, at the what do they call the restaurant next to the ice cream place, right?
Yeah. I'll never get the name out of it, but that's where we had it.
It's right next to Udders and Putters.
Yeah.
Miniature golf course.
Really classing up to the joint.
Oh yeah. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. So then you decided, okay, I'm going to carve a pipe. It actually came out smokable, right? And then what happened?
So then, internet search. Yeah, I just decided I was going to search the mess out of this thing, and the first site that I got really deep into was I get the two of them in my head messed up. So Brothers of Briar is one of my favorite sites to be on because those guys are amazing. But it was Pipemakers Forum. I think it was worker.net back then.
Yep.
And I just poured through every post, and I got active, and just all the comments, I was reading them, and it really is a good brotherhood of guys looking to make great pipes, and they're always sharing ideas and opinions, and on that forum, I met Tyler Lane Beard. Do you know him?
Yes, we met him. I want to say in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. So Tyler is a master carver, carves amazing pipes, and was always happy to say, yeah, I'll give you some solid opinions on that, because I didn't want to hear, oh, it's great, I love it, because anybody can make, some weird shape and say it's an organic pipe, and I just thought that was an excuse for making, a pretty pipe. So he would always give me solid feedback and say, well, this line's off or that line's off, and somewhere in that time, we moved from, I think we were at Houston at that time, we moved from there to here in Fairhope. And he said, Brian, if you're going to Fairhope, there is a pipe carver in the area in Foley who's carved for decades, thousands of pipes. He does it for a living, and his name is Rad Davis. So Rad Davis is an amazing carver, and he's retired now. But he said, you need to call Rad Davis and see if you can get in touch with him. And so I did that, and I just said, hey, Rad, I'm a fledgling carver at best. I'm totally curious about the process. I'm just wondering if I could come see your shop. I just wanted to see what does a pipe shop look like? What kind of tools does he have? And he was so kind. He said, yeah, come by whatever day it was, come by 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll walk you through a pipe make, and, making a pipe. So, just invaluable information and time. So I showed up, and of course, Rad is super efficient. He can make pipes in a handful of hours versus all day or all week type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I got to see him make a pipe from the ground up, from a standard block all the way through. So, so the funny part about that, I'm a car guy, and I love cars. And at the time, I had a BMW 740i Sport Edition. And it was a older mobster looking style, just a beautifully well taken care of car, gorgeous. I basically came home from Rad's house, sold it, bought all the pipe tools he had, and got started.
Oh my gosh!
Wow!
So he really, really retired out of the business then. Goodness.
I was never competition for Rad by any means. I didn't buy his tools.
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
I bought.
Oh, you replicated everything he had. Gotcha. Yeah. So, with your first one, did you bore everything with a drill press? Did you have a lathe? What were you using originally with that first?
Yeah, with this one here, I was using just I didn't have a drill press. I used a Dremel with a drill bit, and then hand sanding, which is why this thing took me like 19 hours to make. Yeah. And in this case, I didn't even make the stem. I didn't have any clue on how to start that. This was before watching Rad, so. I just thought you could buy a stem and it would fit in. I had no clue whatsoever. I got lucky that I actually could buy a stem and it fit in. But and honestly, if I hadn't been able to, I might have just said, this isn't for me. I can't, I can't do it. So, some tobacco shop had a stem sitting around that they had made for somebody and they didn't pick it up. And it actually kind of,
is it tapered? Is that?
No, it's like a 5. I don't know what size it is. But I happened to drill the right hole for it. So,
oh my gosh,
it just kind of fits the way the pipe's supposed to look. So, but I will say one thing Tyler told me. He said, if you want to be a pipe maker, you got to make your own stems. Because even though you can get prefab stems, I'm probably boring you to tears about this.
No, not at all. Not at all. You're in the right place, man.
If you get prefab stems, you can't make like weird stuff like this. There's no way you're going to get a stem that's going to fit some weird pipe like that. So that's what the lathe does. The lathe helps you cut your stems and cut your blocks and all that. So.
All right. So when you replicated what Rad had, you went with a lathe. Was it a metal lathe or a wood lathe? It's a metal lathe,
which is odd on the outset, but when you understand what you're using it for, it makes a lot of sense. Because in the lathe, you know what? I'm gonna get one thing and show you something.
While that's happening, the people want to know what's everyone smoking.
Oh, good question. What are you smoking there, Brian?
I'm smoking one of my favorites. It's Frogmorton Cellar. Can't get it anymore. They've gone out of business, and this is 2016, and I absolutely love it. It's wonderful.
Is that do you have more, or is that the last of what you got?
I do have more. I got a pretty good cellar going when I was on Brothers of Briar. I did all kinds of trades and things like that. So I counted tins when they went out of business. I wanted to see how many things I had, and so I don't have enough, but I've got enough to keep me going for a while. So
good.
Is there such thing as having enough?
Not when it's out of business. There's not.
That's right.
So I am smoking this Fruit Loopy German tobacco that I like so much. However, it was over here. It's an open tin. When I opened it, it was a bit dry. So I blended that with some Lane RLP6, which has been sitting out here also. But that seems to have brought it to about the right humidity for my taste. I do smoke my tobacco a little drier, I think, than most people.
Yeah.
So like when I buy tobacco in bulk, I'll get it in a big Ziploc baggie and leave it open for a while because I do like it a little bit dry. Boy, are you vaping tonight?
Yeah, I'm back to it though. I've got some serious pipe envy tonight. Running all of this from our upstairs kind of office. So vaping the Caliburn, UL Caliburn again with the same what is this? Caramel, vanilla, pecan, waffle juice. It's a nice dessert vape. It's really great. It's really great stuff. But yeah, I got some pipe envy for sure.
All right, so you jumped up to get something. What'd you grab, Brian?
Well, I just thought I'd show you what the block of briar looks like when you get it. So, and give you an idea of how it works on the lathe. So, do you know anything about briarwood and what it looks like and where it comes from?
I do, but let's say I don't.
All right, let's say you don't. So, briarwood comes from the Mediterranean area, and it is basically kind of a scrub brush product, so to speak. So, this is the outside of kind of a big root ball. So this actually is in the ground. It's not part of the trunk or anything like that. And so they harvest it and they chop it up and dry it for who knows how long, and then they send it here. So I get all of my wood from Mimo Briar. He's known as one of the best, if not the best, over there in the Italy area. So what I was going to point out about this is kind of what I bought on eBay actually for my first pipe. So it didn't have any holes, didn't have any shape. It was just a raw block of briar. So you start out by trying to figure out what kind of pipe is in it, what fits there. So obviously this rough part of the pipe is this outside here, and you can see the grain radiating up, and that's where this goes up like that. So in buying a metal lathe to do pipe work, you have to buy an expensive set of jaws because you have to have something that holds this on there. And a lot of lathes have 4-jaw chucks or 3 jaws, but you would kind of need a big 2-jaw tower chuck like that. So I got the Cadillac of chucks back then, and it was about a $700 chuck, and it's just perfect for holding this block to spin it like this. So you spin one hole in here for the bowl, and then you flop it on its axis and spin one more to connect it with the smoke hole, and then you're off and running. So there's not, depending on the wood or the pipe like this one, there's not a ton you can actually do on the metal lathe. A lot of it's done by hand. So.
And do you bore just one block at a time, or do you set up to make a couple pipes at once, or what's your method?
So I'm a one pipe person. I like making one at a time because I don't like repetition. I get bored. In fact, I had to do 2 identical pipes for a customer in Belgium just 2 weeks ago, and I felt like I was like pulling my teeth out, because I just made this pipe. I got to make another one.
It's like deja vu. Huh?
So I'm capable of doing it, but I don't enjoy it. So I like to get one pipe going and figure out where it's going to go, and then finish it to completion before I start another one. So, and honestly, when I first started making pipes, I couldn't do it any other way because there's so much to think about. If I had more than one going, I would have got lost pretty quickly.
Yeah, or make the same mistake on multiple pipes.
Exactly.
I would do that.
Yeah.
So then your carving that you're doing to get rid of the bulk, what tools are you using then after it comes off the lathe?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways of doing it, but basically I've got a mandrel that spins, hooked to a motor that spins several different styles of, I should say, different grit of sand.
Is that a Fordham or what?
It's I can't remember the name of it, but it basically has one on each side, and there's 2. I'm sorry, I'm too wide, and it has a disc that spins on both sides.
Okay.
And that's the way most pipe makers do it. They have a motor with a disc on it, and you basically are working the piece up against that disc to take off different.
Abrasive carving, then, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then
try to keep your knuckles out of it.
I know guys use slack sanders, so a massive belt, slack sander, and they're going against that. And I've never made one of those, but it fascinates me. I think it'd be really handy.
Yeah, I can't imagine those are difficult to build. I know I've built sanders before.
Yeah.
And I know how those are done. And that they look like, basically in woodworking, it's similar to a stroke sander, which is a very large horizontal belt, and you're running flat stock underneath it and just applying pressure where you need it. Yeah. But this you're talking is a vertical, and your hand is the platen that's pushing against the back of the belt, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you want to have a little bit of slack. So I've seen them 4 or 5 feet, floor to top, just to get whatever they want, the slack in that. And I've also seen much shorter ones, but as long as you keep the belt on the rollers and it's not going, too fast, then it'll work. So,
you got to wonder who the first one was to do that.
I think a lot of things are figured out by mistake, actually.
I think so too.
Forgot to tighten the belt, and
as a wood turner, when in introducing people to woodworking in a job that I had where I was teaching woodworking, I always like to point out that the lathe is one of the very first, if not the first, powered tool, but it's also one of the only tools where the wood is powered, and you're holding the cutting tools.
Yeah.
And I assume that after they tried the lathe for the first time, they looked at each other and said, "Let's don't do that again. Let's go about this some other way."
Yeah, it's so when I bought my lathe, I honestly didn't even know how to turn it on. I had never seen one other than seeing one at Rad's house, and here this thing is on a crate sitting in my garage, and I'm going to use it. So the learning curve was steep for me. I'd never used it, and it's.
So what did you buy?
I bought a jet lathe, BD 920. It's a small little lathe. It's actually worth more now than when I bought it because the price of steel's going up, I guess. So
yeah.
And I've used that for 7 years, and it just has been flawless. So
that's great.
I remember I got it on Amazon with free shipping, believe it or not. So they shipped me a lathe for free shipping.
I bought a lathe on Amazon
years
ago. Oh yeah.
So one curiosity is it is a metal lathe, but I do set it up as a wood lathe every once in a while too. So I'll put a steady rest on it, and I do some carving that way. Prime example. So here's a I don't know if that light's good or not, but
well, we can see the top of it. Would you consider that a Rhodesian, or what is that? What style is that?
Funky, kind of a funky Rhodesian. And so when it's sitting on the lathe like this, I can carve all this out in the rings on the lathe. But I do this, these parts here, that curve, I do that, set it up as a wood lathe so I can have a real sweeping, smooth motion on that. So that was just a weird one that was starting out as something else, and I saw it going this way and just went with it. So I haven't even smoked that one yet.
do you use a bandsaw as well? Do you do any shaping on a bandsaw?
Yeah. So typically, what I'll do. So all right. So there's two kind of main methods of carving pipes. There's a drill first, shape second, and a shape first, drill second. So what I learned and what Rad Davis did was the drill first. So you get your holes good, and then you shape around it. And that's kind of the process we talked about. The shape first method is, to me, it's like abstract art. It is. There is nothing set in stone until you put the holes in place, and then you hope you get it right. But the benefit of that is you can really follow the wood, the grain, and if you start carving around and you find out, there's a pit here, you can start moving things over a little bit. So the flexibility is huge. And funny story about that, I had carved for a couple years, and there were a couple things I didn't know how to do, which shape first was one of them. And another one was using horn as an accent, like buffalo horn and stuff like that. So there is an amazing pipe carver in Nashville, and his name is Grant Batson. I don't know
yes, absolutely, yes.
He is as talented as the day is long, and the day is long here during COVID season. So,
Yes.
That guy can make anything, and he was doing courses that, hey, pay me some money, come up, and I'll show you whatever you want to learn. So I had a couple things on my mind. I said, Grant, I'm going to come up, and I want to learn, shape first. I want to learn how to do military mount, because I'd never done that, and that's totally mount. And then
explain that to Seth and anybody else who doesn't know military mount. In fact, when I asked you whether that bit that or stem that you purchased was tapered, that's part of what I was thinking. So, what's military mount?
Military mount, and I think it got its name from the fact that you can remove it more easily to make it smaller. So if you're in the military and you're packing things up small, a military mount is something that comes out whether the pipe is hot or not. Whereas a lot of times when you have a not tapered stem, is this one here. It's flat. It's a tube. It's not tapered at all. You got to be real careful removing it if the pipe's too hot and the fit is too tight. So military mount on the other side of it is, it's more like this. So it's fitting into an identical cone-shaped mortise, and that way it just removes real nice without having any issues of the wood cracking or anything like that.
Kind of like your Morse taper on your lathe, and your tailstock and your live center are
that's exactly what it is.
The first time you see that, you think, that's it? That's what holds that in? Or a drill press? The drill chuck is usually held into Morse taper?
Yeah. Yeah, and
so you do that? Do you have pipes that are using that military mount, or you just?
I do, and I'll show you. Let's see, I've got one case open, and I'll show you some pipes too. But let me open this case because I think that's what has it. Let me find it. Yeah, no, not that one. This one. So this one right here. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So this one here, this is the pipe I made with Grant Batson, actually. So what you end up is you show up, you get an idea of what you want to do, and then you execute it. So he made one almost identical to this. This is an acorn, and so this accomplished basically all the things I didn't know how to do. This, I actually shaped this acorn first, and then drilled the hole out. And this right here is water buffalo horn. So I'd never worked with it, didn't know how to attach it. It's actually attached with a stainless steel tendon that goes right through there.
Does that smell great when you work it?
Oh, no, it does not. Wood, yes. The horn, no.
Yeah.
And then this one has boy, I haven't taken that off in a while. There we go. So on the inside of this, and you may not be able to see it at all. It probably not.
Nope.
It has anytime you do this tapered stem like this, and in horn, you have to strengthen that horn up with a copper ring. So I have to insert a copper ring into that tiny little bit of horn. Because that horn will stretch or crack, and you don't want that. But with that ring in there, it stays nice and steady. So yeah, that's a version of a tapered stem right there.
So first off, is the hole itself that you bore before the tapered ring, is the hole tapered?
Ask me that again so my brain can catch up.
The hole that you bore in the stem before, in the stem before you insert the ring, is the hole itself tapered, or is just the ring tapered?
The hole itself is tapered to fit that tapered stem. Okay. And then what you do is you carve a tiny ring on the outside of that hole, and then you insert a brass tube or something like that into that. And it sounds ridiculously hard, and there is some skill involved, but just learning a certain simple trick, it's actually pretty easy.
Is it split?
It can, but if your tools are sharp enough, it'll put a nice little gouge in there and just put the ring right in. So
interesting. Now my question was, is the ring split?
No, it's not.
It is not, because otherwise that would end up damaging your stem, then, wouldn't it? If it had a
So the ring itself doesn't touch the stem.
Gotcha.
So you have the hole, then you have a little bit of space of more horn, and then your ring goes in. So basically, your horn is pushing against that ring. So I feel like this is probably the driest conversation ever.
No, this is interesting. this is really interesting stuff.
I'm apologizing for anybody who's completely bored with mechanics.
Right. You can stop apologizing, because this is why we have you here. We're interested in these things, right?
Well, I'm glad I'm not the one who's interested in it.
No, this is pipe smokers tend to kind of go down the rabbit hole where they get real passionate about pipes, maybe a little obsessive about it. Some people get real passionate, obsessive about tobacco. I think most of us go back and forth, right? Different times in our hobby. Mm-hmm. And, even if all we're ever going to do is shop for a pipe, I think it's good to understand these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boy, Briscoe says to smile. Boy, Briscoe says to smile. He's watching you.
Awesome.
Seth can't hear me. Seth, smile. What? Oh, you paused your camera, or? Gotcha.
So speaking about smoking, do you, Scott, do you have a dedicated pipe for tobacco, or are you not that obsessive about it?
Not at all. No. And because I would say, 99 bowls out of 100, I'm smoking in a corn cob.
Yeah.
And they're just so darn forgiving. And I'm smoking aromatics that I like. Almost all of them are some form of a Cavendish. Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, even if I'm smoking a briar, which is occasionally, I'm smoking the same stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't go too far from my comfort zone. Yeah. I've tried a lot. Seth and I have smoked a lot of different tobaccos, but I've been smoking since I was really not old enough to smoke. And so I'm kind of set in my ways. I know what I like.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what kind of pizza you like, or what you like on a pizza. Yeah. So before we go much further, though, any questions or comments in the chat, boy? Yes. So we are soon to get to that topic, and that's probably as good a transition as any. So, yeah, you were already doing some leather work, I believe. Is that right? Doing both things, leather and
when that statement was made, no, I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing just pipes at the time. So,
so you find out how in the world did you get the word that the FDA was the deeming was coming?
I don't remember the exact instant or word I heard community, the pipe makers, it's a tight community, and there was a lot of complaint immediately about it. So I remember going to the website and seeing, and the website's crazy. It's a rabbit trail of page after page after page.
Yep.
But when it first came out, there was a lot of, I don't know what the word is, a lot of problems with how it came out. It seemed like it was forced out of nowhere. It hadn't been gone through the proper channels. But on their website, it clearly said that they were regulating pipe smoking, tobaccos, accessories, I should say, not accessories, but components of, and they were putting it into a whole series of things with vapes and other things. So it clearly said if it is a pipe, that is considered a component of smoking, and they were going to regulate it. So what that meant is that's, yeah, it's like a fork to steak, I guess. So, if the steak goes bad, for the fork out too. So, so it was, I back then I was really pretty gung ho. I wanted to do pipes full time. I was going to pipe shows, ramping up tools. I mean, I'd made them at that point probably 4 or 5 years, and had sold pipes all over the world, just country after country after country, all 50 states. Just it takes a while to build a name, but I'd finally gotten there, and so it was ridiculously deflating to see that they were regulating them. And from what I understood, what that meant was any new product I put out would have to be submitted to them for approval. Well, every pipe I made, as far as I understood, was a new product because they're all different. And none of them fit their grandfather laws because it didn't go back far enough, and basically meant that I'd have to have everything regulated, and I couldn't afford that. Not the time, not the expense. It put me completely out of business.
Yeah.
Now it was a gray area for a long time, and a lot of folks just kept making pipes, and I don't wrong them for that. But for me, I felt like I had to take care of my family. I had to make sure I wasn't going to get in any trouble, and I had to be above board on everything. So I shut it down. I quit making pipes, then and there. Except for just for myself and for fun. So, and that forced me into leatherwork.
So now that they're making leather illegal, does that have a? Yes. No, thankfully we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But. So we were reading the deeming regs, pretty closely ourselves on our way to the Chicago Pipe Show in 2014. Seth and I took turns as one of us was driving, reading the regs, and 100 and some odd pages, and it's all legalese, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're highlighting things, and it was just shocking that some idiots at the FDA would think that something made from a corn cob is now equivalent to tobacco, and that's the way we read it as well. And all the show that year was a buzz. No, that's not true. Some in the show were a buzz, but most people were oblivious to it. And I think was at the time we interviewed. No, we didn't do it on tape, but we had talked to Russellette and Phil Morgan from Missouri Meerschaum, and both of them were just saying we think this is going to just gut the industry.
Yeah. And
but then some, like you say, some pipe carvers just said, "I'm out." Some said, "I'm going to say I'm out, but I'm going to do things privately." Yeah. And others said, until I get that letter saying cease and desist, I'm a pipe maker, and no one has told me to stop. Yeah. Right. But I understand your point of view, and there were some products that I immediately stopped selling myself because they were things I was making or modifying that I knew, based on the regs, was gonna put me in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what was interesting is there's a myriad of help that people wanted to offer me, with my decision, and one of them being that, well, just don't drill the hole all the way through, and then it's just, it's art. It doesn't actually function, and let them finish that. And to me, it wasn't it wasn't what I felt I was called to do. I really felt like I was called to be above board, and there's something else I'm supposed to be doing, and it wasn't pipes at the time. So I really was out. When I said I was done, I really had to stop making them. And I made them for myself, like I said, just to keep the skill and because I just absolutely love it. That slung me in with not the worst part, but the terrible part is I had just bought $2,000 or $3,000 of product from Italy just to, just kind of gearing up for my next, bunch of stuff. So good news is I still have that $2,000 or $3,000 with the wood sitting there. Good.
All right. So you say to yourself, I think leather's kind of cool. So then what do you do? How do you start all over?
So this is weird. Yeah. And I had to completely start over because I had started out in the corporate world from marriage. I just got out of college with a church music degree and immediately got into sales. So I started off in, I guess it was Hewlett Packard. No, it was Compaq before they got bought out. And this was in Colorado Springs. And Hewlett Packard to Xerox to BMC software to CA software. And I'm climbing the ladder the whole way up, moving here and there. And, big paychecks, high pressure, high stress. And at some point I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. This isn't how I want to live my life. So completely bombed out of that. Just called my wife at one point in time. In fact, during that time, I was living in Houston and working in Dallas. So wow. I was literally on a flight every Monday morning, coming back every Friday evening. And when they started complaining that I was traveling on work time, I just realized, yeah, this is not going any better than, it's not going to get any better. So I left that corporate world, dropped it like a hot biscuit, and called my wife and said, I think I'm quitting today. And she said, come on home. And that was the end of it. So at that point, it's like, now what? So leather was something that here I am sitting in a cigar shop, a local one, Boucher's Cigars. And I had made this leather pouch, and it's just a little leather pouch that all I do is I flip it up like that. I throw some loose tobacco in it, and it's just how I carry my day smoke, if you want to call it that. So it doesn't keep it humidified. Actually, kind of dries it out perfectly for the day. And I was sitting there using this, and the guy's like, "Hey, would you make me one of those?" I said, "If I got any more scrap leather sitting around, sure." And he said, "You could sell that stuff on Etsy." And I'm like, "No, I got 4 kids. I got to make a living doing something, And he said, "No." I said, "I got a friend that sells leather passport covers for, that's what she does. And she makes a bunch of money every month." And I said, "Well, okay, I'm interested," and that was my first inkling of maybe I'll do leather. So I didn't really have a history of leather work or anything. I've always loved leather like anybody else does, but had never really made anything with it when I got started. So that was the first thought of, all right, maybe leather is it. So I want to say that year, my wife bought me growleyleather.com, the domain name for my Christmas present, It was one of those things I opened up at first like, oh, great, thanks. This is nice, I could even watch, but it was foreshadowing of what was really coming next. And when we had a couple of instances where we just felt like this is what we're supposed to do. Like there is no doubt we're supposed to get into leather. I had a guy that was a friend of mine. In fact, I only met him once prior at that point. And I said, "Richie, I know you do leather. Do you mind like showing me a few things?" Kind of like the Rad Davis situation, right?
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, I'll come down." So he came down and he sitting here in this garage, and he brought out a bunch of tools and leather, and we're just talking, here's how you cut it. Here's how you do. I'm like, this is great. Okay. I'm putting my mind around it thinking, is this within my skill set? And so as he's packing up, and I think we were there 3 hours talking, hanging out, smoking pipes and talking leather. He's putting stuff away, and I'm trying to take notes, basically mental notes of what he had. Again, trying to go out and buy that stuff. And at one point he said, "All right, well, you can keep this." And I said, "No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to understand what it is, so I go out and get it." He said, "No, I'm giving it to you." And he said, I'm getting into woodworking. And so
oh my.
he gave me, Richie gave me like, I want to say $1,500 of leather and tools. So it was just one of those signs that says, you're on the right track, go for it.
Oh, wow.
That's how leather started. So that was a long answer to that question.
Yeah, perfect. And that was just 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago, May 15th.
So you had a family with 4 kids at that time.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot of pressure to have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I like families and they're worth keeping around and all, but there's a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and I'm trying to remember. So we've adopted 2 girls, and I'm trying to remember. My dates are terrible. It's not the way my brain works, but yeah, I think we either had 3 girls or 4 girls at that time. I want to say it was all 4, but I'm saying that for my wife's sake later because she'll probably say we only had 3.
Your heart had room for 4 at the time.
Yeah, absolutely did. Yes. So yeah, that we jumped into it and we went in 100%. And I always tell people who think they want to start a business, do you really? And they say that a small business owner is the guy who'll give up a 40-hour work week to work 120 type of thing. And that's what we did. We had never made leather products other than this, this thing out here. My wife had never built a website. She built our website.
She did a great
she
job.
Honestly has. Thank you. I'll pass that along. But she honestly has a hard time like turning her phone off and turning it back on. Like she's not a techie, and she'll say that. But she built the whole thing. Had to study and learn. And while she's doing that, we're learning how to take photographs. We weren't camera experts, and you got to have good photos.
Yes, you do.
Man, and I had to build. So our goal was, if we're going to launch GrowleyLeather.com, we wanted to launch it so it would appear as if we had always existed. Mm-hmm. We didn't want to start out with a couple belts or some watch straps and grow. We wanted people to be like, how did we never see these guys? So that's what we did. We put our mind to building product sets, multiple products in the set, photographing them all. We got tired of being models here around Fairhope, trying to get all our stuff to look good in pictures, but we did all that in about 3 months. So from the day kind of we started building our website to launch, it was about 3 months. We launched with full product sets and all that.
Well, your Instagram with the pipes was always so amazing. You took such great photography there, so it didn't surprise me. And I remember seeing the leather. I don't even know what we call the one I bought, but the first time I saw it, about that big, it's like, I have to have that. I have to have that. I bought it. I filled it full of pipes and stuff, and then I lost it. It was lost for 2 years before I found it again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I treasure it. And I travel with it. It's a bag that I carry in my luggage. And before the last couple of months, I was traveling a lot. And I remember the very first time I opened my luggage, and it had gotten beat up a bit in the luggage, and for a moment my heart dropped. Like, no, this is what I want. I want this thing to look loved, and now it really does.
Yeah, I bet. So. That was my first weaved leather product. Well, maybe my second, actually, now I think about it. But the whole idea of weaving leather together instead of sewing it or riveting and things like that. But that's I'll show you what I use. This isn't on our site. This is this is a bag that I use.
Okay. Because
it fits a small jar, not a big one, but it'll definitely fit 2 tins of tobacco or several, and then a couple pipes. And basically, I've got the check tool here, so you never lose it. It's always there, and it flips open, and then you put all your stuff inside. So
that's good.
That's what I carry because I don't carry a ton. It's not on our website because it's a product that I think is too close to another vendor's product that I don't want to take any business from them. So I changed it, and then I made it bigger to hold what I want to make in. I made it out of water buffalo because I love water buffalo, but it's too close in my opinion. So I keep it to myself, but I enjoy it. So.
Okay. So there is honor among leather workers. Is that?
I hope so.
Gonna say I'm seeing this thread of integrity that I like in you, and that's a great sign.
Well, integrity is it's not easier, but it's easier to live with after you've been that way. So you
True.
do something out of integrity, and you got to constantly watch your back, and I can't live that way. So yeah.
So you again, I don't want to move on from leather. Is there any questions or comments there, Seth, that can bring in?
Not staying in the leather realm, but I've got one. What's of the products that you offer, like what product takes the longest to make?
So right now, the longest product I have is our Finch laptop bag. So if you're on Growley Leather and you shop satchels and bags, you'll see our laptop bag. It's called the Finch. It's really involved. It's something where every bit of it is cut by me, by hand. It's nothing that my employees can help me out with. And by employees, I mean my two oldest girls. They're my employees. So that bag, with all the different customizations, can easily take me a day and a half of solid cutting and sewing.
Oh, my gosh.
One that might be closer, and I'll have it here, is this is our roll top bag, and I'll pan it up and down. But see, this is
wow.
This is a water buffalo base, a cowhide soft compartment area here, and it rolls. So if you're camping and you have more stuff or less stuff, you can open it up or roll it down, and it's a backpack. So
that's cool.
That takes a long time to make.
So Briscoe says that Kelly brings the integrity. She gets it from her family.
That is absolutely true. Yeah.
So you have a family fan in the audience tonight.
And I will say this too: if you compare Growley Leather Instagram to Growley Pipe Instagram, you'll see a significant difference, and that's because I do the pipe side and she does the leather side, and she's got a really good eye for it and does a really nice job of the whole feed looking amazing. It's kind of eye candy from top to bottom, whereas mine's sporadic and all that. So
what I think you guys do a great job of is you weave enough of your personality in there, but it's not overwhelming, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like every other picture is a picture of you working or you holding a bag, but there's enough of it there that you realize there's real people behind this brand.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Well, and it's one of those things that, I'm up there, I'm head down, I'm cutting leather, I'm sewing, and she'll say, "Hey, we got to get some pictures," and I'm like, "Oh, come on, I'm sewing," but that's part of sales. That's part of owning a business. And so we have to make space for it. But the oddest thing about it is the videos that get the most views, I think, are just a simple video of my sewing machine sewing along a long line of whatever it is. I'm like, "Oh, not the sewing machine video." She's like, "Oh, I get it." So we do them. But yeah,
that's funny.
I think it's important to show what's involved. We try not to sugarcoat anything because it's hard, but we really enjoy it. My oldest girls up there today and myself, they're singing show tunes at the top of their voice while cutting full focus planner covers. So it is a wonderful, wonderful family experience. And we didn't know
planner covers.
Yeah, we sell those like mad.
Really? I've seen those. I've seen that work. They're beautiful.
Do you use the planner or no?
No, I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. Do you use it?
No, because my planning is basically a 8.5 by 11 everything I need to make written by Kelly. So we go completely old school. But man, it seems to be a really popular platform. We made one as a one-off for a customer, and it just blew up. We've sold hundreds and hundreds of them. So it's a really neat product. I'll show you another product too.
That's for those of you watching. It's a Michael Hyatt planner.
That's right, Michael.
And the cover, is the leather cover one that the book tucks into? Yeah,
so it tucks in on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side is open for pens, cell phones, papers, things like that, and then it has a snap closure to keep it all tucked in. So, yeah,
Really cool.
we've done we've been real successful with that, and we've also released bullet journal covers too. Bullet journaling's it's like right brain, left brain type of journaling. Planning your day. So,
yeah, my wife has gotten into bullet journaling the last 2 years really, and I've got scribbles on random sheets of paper that maybe I'll find sometime.
Exactly.
She's got like birds and doodles and stuff in hers.
So I don't usually like to get distracted during these things, but I got Briscoe texting me.
Terrible.
I know. I'm sorry. We should just have him get on film with us.
Right.
Or he should just put his comments in the chat like the rest of the viewers.
I don't know that Briscoe knows how to use YouTube.
Well, that's fair.
So okay, yeah, he's already gotten the question answered about is it similar to like a Franklin planner?
Yeah,
I think he was I'm a little behind on him.
Okay.
And what's the brand? If you were to want to get one of those planners, what would you Google?
So the planner is called Full Focus Planner. You can see all sorts of information about it, and the Growley leather is a cover that has like a business folio that's got a spot for pen and pencil and business cards and other things that's, I guess, custom fit for the planner to tuck into.
That's right.
Okay, very good.
So we actually do a ton of journals. Journals make great gifts. People tend to find that once they have a nice piece of leather in their hands, they end up actually using the journal more. We've had multiple people tell us that I never wrote much until I got this journal in my hand, and it just makes it such a more rich experience. So we sell a lot of journals as gifts, and the Full Focus Planner is just kind of that in that journal space. But yeah, it's we have, I think, a lot of, I would say, I don't give a percentage, but a lot of our products that are on our website are because someone asked for something custom and we thought this fits, we like it, and we'll make a product out of it. So
that's great.
Well, that's good. That goes with a question too. William asked, do you offer slight customizations to your leather products? For instance, if my laptop is an inch larger, is that something you would do?
Absolutely. So absolutely on request. So so this is just interesting about trying to figure out how to run a business from the ground up. I also have people that ask me, can I get this pistol holder? Can I get this knife holder? And I had to learn early on what to turn down and what to take on. So if it fits along our skill set and along our branding, we're absolutely happy to look at it and do it. But we're pretty quick to say, oh, this isn't our space. This isn't our speed. You might want that hand sewn by this guy. And basically that just means that the customer is probably going to get a better product from someone else in that space. But you can get bogged down pretty quickly trying to find out, how to make one particular thing you're never going to make another one of. So
a bong holder, that doesn't quite fit the brand?
Idea how to make one. Never going to make one.
Never going to make one. Okay.
I had a gentleman ask me if I'd make him a bacon bag. And I said, I don't know what a bacon bag is, but he was basically saying that, people like to show up at parties with, their different kind of whiskeys or kind of cool things, and his deal is bacon. One of our satchels was born out of the bacon bag concept. So,
and so where is the bacon bag on your site? I mean, somebody wants to know.
You will never find it tied to bacon bag, but it's the Hidalgo satchel. We measured, so it's Bill E's Bacon local. He makes amazing bacon. Amazing bacon. I'll just say that again. It is so good. But he had all the meat stacked up. We took measurements and all that, and it was the measurement of the Hidalgo. So
does he carry cooked or raw bacon with him in his bag?
So I think it would be raw. It's the concept of taking it to the party and then cooking it there for everybody type of thing. So
it's just greasing the leather.
Exactly. Keeping it good.
Sure. Oh my gosh.
All kinds of requests. I had someone that wanted to hang an airplane from their garage, so didn't do a whole lot with that one, but just some crazy stuff.
I've seen some guys Not recently, but I've seen some older dudes that had a pipe holster on their belt.
I have seen that. Yeah. So it's kind of bizarre. Very few of my pipe crowd actually followed me over to the leather side, and I don't know why, and I don't hold it against them, but I initially started having some pipe products, in mind on the drawing board and making them and things like that, but it didn't carry over. So I don't carry really any pipe products on the website, and that's fine. I make them for people who ask and for myself when I need one. So
yeah. I thought about talking to you a couple of years ago about a cross promotion. Let's do an Aristocob pipe pouch or something, and I realized they're dang corncob pipes, man. I mean, you can put it in you can put it in any old bacon bag, and you're good to go.
Well, the hard part about it is I'd have to charge so much for the little bitty pouch because it would take so much time to make that you'd think it's ridiculous. So that's a lot of times why I have to turn stuff down. I can't sell at a reasonable price.
So are you buying full? What do they call that? What do you call a?
It's a hide.
Cow.
A hide. Are you buying full hides?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we get hides in several 100 pounds at a time. We're not quite to the getting in a pallet stage, but we get several 100 pounds at a time from all over the country. And we have, we try to narrow it down to a certain select set of hides, so to speak, so that the customer kind of always knows what they're getting. So there are so many options out there. So
is it sold by the pound, or do you first pick a class or a thickness, or tell me about this? It's
sold by the square foot. So, okay. And they have machines. So the hide is not like squared. It's the shape of whatever it came off of, and however it was tanned and all that. And so they have machines that measure the square footage out of it, and they sell it by the square foot. So, I have hides that are, 12 square foot and some that are 29 or 33 is, I think, the biggest I've seen. And a 33 square foot hide will cover a dining table, a long dining table. So it's just, I mean, if you guys could smell my house, you walk in, it smells like leather. It is just wonderful whenever we get these shipments in. We really enjoy it.
And so how long will it last you?
Well, it depends. If it's Christmas, it doesn't last very long at all. So we try to buy for future. So while keeping our costs down. So we're very careful about buying what we know is going to sell. And so I would say 2 to 3 months maybe, is what we're going by. But during Christmas, we actually do about a third of our business over 6 to 8 weeks of time. So we are just hopping before Christmas.
So Briscoe asked a question that actually came to my mind. Could you have something made that has a brand on it?
Yeah.
Do the hides have brands on them sometimes, or?
Yeah, so that's kind of a double-edged sword, but absolutely. So I would say half the hides will come with some sort of brand on them. And what's interesting is I don't know a lot about the branding process other than hot iron cow brand. But what
not always hot. It's not always hot anymore. Yeah.
What's weird though is depending on how the hide is tanned, some of the brands are usable and some of them aren't at all. They kind of flake and it would be something you wouldn't want. But the hard part about the brand is it's never in a very usable spot of the leather. So you can't get some nice bag or something with a brand right in the middle. It's going to be wrapped around a corner or underneath or something like that. Mm-hmm. We have some ideas about how to make that whole unique brand scar leather a product that'll be interesting. So we haven't quite baked that thoroughly, but we want to be able to offer something that does give someone a completely unique experience with a brand like that. But give them a way of knowing exactly what they're getting before they buy it. So we don't want to be a mystery brand situation.
So your brand, if you will, is embossed. Is that the way you do that?
It's pressed into the leather. Yep.
It is. Yep. Okay. And it's super durable. I was concerned when I saw it thinking, all right, it's not heated. It's not burned into it. And it's holding on strong.
So there's a couple ways of doing it. And we started out by heat branding. We had several brands up there that were hot. I was constantly worried about them falling off and catching something on fire. And that's a very viable way of branding. But you can also burn the mess out of some leather. And the brand is typically applied after the product's done. So you could have a bunch of hours into something and then mess it up. So,
that's like drilling a pipe after you've carved it.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's nonsense. That's crazy talk.
That's right. So we went to an embossed type brand where we will have small plates like this CNC'd from us. And there's a retired veteran in Texas who does it for us. And Texas Custom Dies. No, that might be it. Anyway, he CNCs the logo and sends it to us, and then we press it in with a 6-ton press into the leather. So,
okay.
But more. Go ahead, Seth.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, more to that point of branding, though, what we have got into is corporate branding. So a lot of people are starting to get corporate gifts, and they say, "Hey, we want our brand on it." We're absolutely willing to do that. Ours will be on the back somewhere, but we've got a whole drawer full of corporate brands of people saying, "I want coasters, I want cup holders, I want you name it." Notebooks. We've done a ton of notebooks for corporate sales.
Have you read the book Giftology yet?
Exactly. Absolutely.
That falls right into that.
Yeah.
That line of thinking.
Yeah.
Have you done any leather that was not cow leather? Have you worked in any other animals?
So yeah.
Excuse me.
We are 99.9% cow leather. Bless you.
Every Tuesday night, I get on a sneezing tear.
Is water buffalo?
That was the like extra percent. So water buffalo's not cow leather. It's the one leather we use all the time that isn't, but we use it kind of in small amounts. So all of our belts are cow leather. All of our guitar straps. We sell tons of guitar straps out of water buffalo. I did have the unique experience of working with a full gator hide once, and this hide was like 13 feet long, and I was scared to death to cut into it because you only get one try. But I made a purse for a gal local. She brought her gator hide that her dad had harvested, had cured, and then sent it over to us to make a bag. And it turned out really pretty.
Oh, that's cool. Is that on Instagram?
It'll be several swings down, but it's on there.
All right, I missed that one somehow. I was visiting a wood shop out in Los Angeles probably about a year ago, and they were using it was stingray leather. It was ray leather, they called it. And I could not believe the cost of this teeny little pelt. And they were making end tables for some Hollywood star.
Okay.
And it took I think it was 8 or maybe 10 hides to do the top of each end table.
Oh my goodness.
And the guy was telling me, he says, like, well, you can't put any finish on it. It is waterproof in a sense, but once they dye it, because they're available in different colors, you don't want to be putting, like a sweaty drink glass on it. And I asked him, I said, well, what would somebody do if they put a glass on it and damage it? Because these people, they'd have me make them 2 new end tables. So crazy.
I've had people ask me just recently to use some ostrich skin to make them a wallet. I didn't take that custom piece. I had never seen ostrich skin up close, and the learning curve wasn't something I could do. But so like the gator pelt, for example, I never knew this about gators, but there are little platelets of, I guess, bone or some bone type material along in it. So you're sewing along and then your needle hits that plate and you're like, I didn't know that was there. So,
wow.
I worked around. I mean, I worked through it. It was enough to cut through it, but and luckily, I guess it's more along the back of the middle of it, which was the center of the bag. So I didn't really have to get through much of it. But it's those learning experiences that I'd rather learn on my own gator pelt than someone else's.
So would you do that again? Was the result good enough that you'd risk putting it in your line?
The result was I think the result was stunning. It was just a gorgeous bag. But I think that to sell something like that, you have to have probably about 10 more years of credibility to really get the price that you would have to sell it for, if that makes sense.
Yep.
That's something that you would probably consider a really high-end bag, and you'd have to sell it for 3 or 4 times what I sell my bags for. So it's just another example of staying in your lane, knowing what you do, where your customers are, and sticking in that, and then making some modifications as you go, because that's what growing is about. But yeah, tons of decisions and all these things.
I bet. No, that makes perfect sense. So let's go back to pipes for a bit.
Yeah.
You've made a pipe that, to my eye, is the most beautiful briar pipe I have ever seen. And every single time a variant of it shows up on Instagram, I can't tap my screen fast enough. Do you have a sample of that handy, and can you tell us about it?
I have a very bizarre sample of it, but it's unique, and it probably will not show up well on camera. And I'm guessing you're talking about the Ramsey.
I am talking about the Ramsey, yes.
This Ramsey is made out of pre-embargo meerschaum. And so you can't get meerschaum in a block anymore. You haven't been able to for a long time. They don't export it as a raw material. They only export it as finished pipes and products. So several years ago, someone had found in a basement of some pipe factory a box of meerschaum blocks. So they're pre-embargo, and they sold for about $50 a piece.
I remember this. I know who found those.
Yeah. So I bought 3 or 4 of them, and this is the only thing I've carved so far out of it. And it's probably the only meerschaum Ramsey in the world, is my guess. Not that that's a huge thing, but I decided to keep it. So that's the shape you're talking about.
That is beautiful. I mean, everything about that, the stem, wow. And how do you do that? That's clearly not turned on your lathe.
Yeah, so the stem is another reason that you can't just buy a prefab stem. So this has to be shaped with the pipe, so it has the shape all the way through, and it follows the line. So what you may not know about stems is, so this is ebonite. This is a material that I got it from Germany, but it's basically vulcanized rubber. So it's super hard, but like rubber, it can be melted and heated. So you shape this straight up, and it looks really ridiculous until it's bent. So once you get it shaped, then you heat it and bend it and just match that nice S curve. So.
And what do you call the shoulder there? What's
that? Here?
Halfway down. Yeah, that. What would you call that?
Yeah, I don't have a name for that. I don't know what I'd call that. I always think when I'm making it, it looks like a surfboard from the back. But so this Bo Nord made Ramsey's. Do you know Bo Nord? Familiar with him?
I do. Oh yes.
He is one of the foremost pipe makers in the world, and he made the Ramsey shape. I'll show you another one. Really, because he had this particular piece of wood he'd been looking at for a long time and wanted to figure out how to make the grain stand out. So back to my block. If you're a woodworker, you know that the grain going this way, that's your straight grain, terminates into bird's eye. So if you picture a pack of straws, the grain is your straws going this way, and when you flip it that way and have all those little holes, that's the straw, and so this ends up being bird's eye. So if you sand that all down, you have all these beautiful little bird's eyes right there. And the way a Ramsey is cut is, let me orient this. Yeah, basically like that. So that the back of this, if this were briar, would be pure bird's eye.
Yeah,
it's just a way of really showing that bird's eye. So Bo made that shape just for that, and this would be more similar to Bo's. This was one of my first Ramseys I made, and you see it doesn't have that shoulder there, and this is the way a lot of guys make them today. This isn't a great example because the wood's not that pretty, but this is where all the bird's eye would be. And then the grain just radiates around this whole bowl and terminates into a little bird's eye right there. So it's a very thought out design that's really hard to drill. So you're trying to connect two lines that basically look like they're going this direct.
Parallel.
So without bending it. So, and this pipe has an interesting story because this was one of the first ones I made in the Ramsey shape. In fact, I made this before I was branding pipes, so this doesn't have the Growley logo on it. And I sold it to a gal, Scotty Pearsall. She's a lady pipe maker, makes fantastic pipes. She asked for this pipe. So I made her this pipe, and like I said before I was branding, and this was the pipe that made me realize I could probably make it as a pipe maker. You know, when I had this idea in mind, which was to make it look like Bo's pipe, and it came out looking basically like this, I thought, I think I can do this. It was just one of those reassuring moments. And so, oddly enough, so I have it. Scotty doesn't have it, even though I sold it to her. Somehow,
that's
a great
good
deal.
Business
so
there.
she did have it. It was her pipe, and it did make it to her house, and she smoked it. But I think she lost it in a drawer or something for a while. And when she got it back out, and this was 3 or 4 years, 5 years later, she said, "Hey, I noticed something on the stem. You know, can you fix that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what it is, but you can send it back to me, and I'll see if I can." And then I got looking at it. I thought, man, I'd love to have this pipe back. It's just kind of a sentimental pipe. And so she sold it to me for what I sold it to her that many years ago. So it was a kind of a beautiful gift back.
Wait, you bought a used pipe for what?
I bought a used pipe. So yeah, I fixed that little bit on it, and then I'm not letting myself brand it, but that was kind of a special pipe for me.
So you don't want to make someone else's leather pouch, but you'll make someone else's pipe.
Yeah. So the difference.
Yeah. Explain that.
The difference in when I started out making pipes was I looked at master pipe makers all day long. It felt like just constantly filling my brain with images of good pipes. And that's what I'll tell any new carvers. Don't look at bad pipes. They're going to put bad lines, bad shapes in your brain. Look at the best carvers out there and see what they do. And then the first thing you try to do is see if you can emulate one to see if you can actually make pipes. And so that's kind of what I was doing back then. And it takes a little bit of time for you to kind of learn what your flow is, what your designs are, and all that. So I was absolutely copying guys' pipes back then. Fun story about that is Tom L. Tang is probably my top favorite carver. He's just a master carver, makes beautiful, beautiful Ramsey pipes, beautiful everything pipes. I was at either the Nashville show or the Kansas City show, and then someone had a bunch of his pipes there, and I was just drooling over them. And I picked up a pipe. I don't remember the shape. Might have been a Dublin, and I was showing my wife. I said, "This is gorgeous. This is Tom L. Tang's pipe." I'm holding it, and she said, "You're there to sell pipes, not to buy pipes." You're right. I put it back and came home without it. Well, then I thought, well, if I can't have it, I'll just make one, you know. And so I drew up my version of the Tom L. Tang, whatever this pipe was, and I made it. And I ended up selling it to the Briery. Skip over in North Alabama, and selling him that. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, I got a question about this pipe." I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he said, "You copied Tom L. Tang's pipe." I said, "Well, yeah, I was trying to emulate his pipe." He said, "No, you copied it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I've got Tom L. Tang's pipe here, and I've got them side by side, and they're identical." And I said, I only held that pipe for 30 seconds, and so I guess just the way my mind works is it caught that image, and I remember drawing it out on paper my way, but that image was there, and he sent me pictures, and I have the pictures, and they're pretty close. He said, "I'm holding them, and I still can't figure out how you did this." So that was just kind of, and I didn't call Tom, but I wrote him. I said, "Hey, I copied your pipe. I didn't mean to make it this close." And he said, "No, it's a good pipe."
Oh, that's great. There's a famous woodworker that made a rocking chair design. His name is slipping my mind, but it's just beautiful rocking chair, and it's one that a lot of chair makers aspire to make. And usually when they pull it off, they give him credit. Yeah. Well, every now and then, there's somebody who'll show up and look at this great rocking chair I designed and built.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. That's what I will say about the pipe community is they're really, really pretty good about saying, "Hey, I modeled this after so and so." So And I always just think that's, a nod. It's a kindness, so.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you can make them better than they can, then you should.
Yeah, that's right.
So the one that is green that I pictured on Instagram, how did you accomplish that?
I actually use leather stain to stain my wood.
Okay.
And I had leather stain before I was even using leather at all. That's what most pipe makers uses.
Nye?
What's that?
Nye, is that the brand or?
I know you're going to ask me that. It's yellow, and
okay.
It'll come to me when I quit thinking about it.
See, I've people who are doing corncob pipe mods, like in the Cob Foolery contest, have asked what should I use, and I've recommended leather. And there's also, you can get a stain that's made for silk that's sold at fabric stores that's also quite vibrant.
Yeah,
it looks beautiful on corn cobs.
So this was, in that particular pipe, to answer your question, it was a green stain, and so that one particularly had a throwing away a bug. It had a green base, and I made a couple different of these, and then it kind of transitioned into a red top that transitioned into the red stem, and so that's just a process of blending those stains and making it look fluid. So. I remember that pipe real well. Unfortunately, my favorite pipes got sent off into the world. I keep the rejects. So
that's got to be tough.
Yeah, there's been a few that I wish I had back, but I'm happy they're out. So
yeah,
you want to see?
Well, that's fantastic, and that also transitions to another topic I'd like to have with you, and that is the idea of loving something that was made by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got some children that you've adopted.
Yep.
I have several cousins that are adopted,
and
they're my cousins, right? And I love them as if they came to me directly from my uncles and aunts.
Yeah.
How did you go down that road?
Yeah. So I'll go way back, but I'll go quickly through it. So I got married fairly young. I think I was 22. Yeah, 22 and got married. We had kids fairly young. So Ashlyn and Emran, we had them, real early on. And then we said, hey, family of four, we're done. The world's built for a family of four. You can fit in any sedan. You can go ride roller coasters together. This is great. And so we thought our family was done at a family of four. Adoption had been in my wife's heart for quite some time, and she brought it up periodically over the years. And we've been married 20 some years, so we've had a long run already. But as she kept bringing it up, I found myself kind of bristling up, like, no, we're good. Financially, we've got what we need, and
roller coaster.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't. So I honestly didn't have any interest, zero. But trying to hear my wife out, I always had the conversation with her. So. When we moved here, that's when the conversation got really strong. Kelly was really thinking, I think we're supposed to adopt. I think we're being called to adopt. And so I started looking at it. I tried to, open my heart up and look at it. And I said, okay, well, back then I was actually making money. So I was in the corporate world. I said, okay, we've got enough money. We've got a big enough house. Logistically, yeah, I can see this happening. I can fit 2 more kids in my house. But I still didn't have a heart for it. And I said, I can't do this on logistics alone, and we really wanted to be a team. So Kelly, she was very good at being patient and letting me, take my time to think through all this. And I started praying about it. I said, God, this is something that's on Kelly's heart. It's not on mine. I see where it could work, but I'm not there emotionally. And I said, if you want me to do this, give me an emotional experience that will tie me into this and make me want to do this emotionally as well. I think it was important for me to have both of those pieces. And there was a single instance when that exact same thing happened several months later. I had an emotional response to some kids I had seen that were up for adoption, and I could picture them in my family. And all of a sudden I thought, I want to do this. Which was new, but I knew that it was an answer to my prayer. There was no doubt about it. And so I said, all right, let's do this. What is this? How do we do it? Because adoption is a huge box to open up. And so in the process of doing that, you end up going to meetings with adoption agencies. And we used one out of Birmingham called Lifeline, I believe. I'm terrible with names. They're wonderful people. And they did several classes we went through and just kind of heard what they said, heard what it's all about. And the hard part for me, and I think for a lot of people about adopting, is you have to figure out what you're capable of and willing to deal with. And that's because there's the gamut of children who are available is very broad. Prime example, Kelly and I knew that we didn't want birth parents to be involved. And I there's nothing wrong with that. It's a wonderful thing to adopt from birth parents who are local and have a relationship with them. We didn't think that was something we were capable of dealing with emotionally. And so for us, that led to international adoption immediately. Like that's how we went from domestic to international. And so then we started looking at what programs are really kind of well tuned for this, because it is a roller coaster. We don't want to make it a scary one. We want to make it as clean cut as we can. And the China program was amazing. Lifeline had developed relationships over there. They really had it dialed in. So China was our primary country to look at for adopting. So that's how we got started into that whole process.
Was it was 2 the goal from the onset?
I think getting the first one done was the goal. It's expensive. I think a single adoption, I think we ended up spending $45,000, which God provided the money for it, but we worked our tails off to get there as well. And so once we had adopted Ivy Ann, we knew that she needed a sister. There's a pretty big gap between her and my older girls. So kind of as soon as we had her settled in and got prepared again, because there's a lot of work to do in the interim, then we started looking right away. So the best part about adoption is you can pick your age. It's not like birthing a child. All right, so I got the 6-year-old, I need a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old, and you start looking for these things. And so in both cases, we had found both of those children, Ivy Ann and Saffron, before we were actually officially ready for the process. So they just kind of came to us. We knew they were the ones, and God worked the whole thing out. And
they weren't infants, correct?
That's correct. They were both. So Kelly will kill me because the ages will be wrong, but somewhere around 3 and 5. They had both had several years in institutionalized care. So yeah, and it has been wonderful. It is hard, a lot of hard work, just like raising any kid. It's hard work. We don't say they are adopted. We say they were adopted. They're just part of the family now. We don't think much about it now. Now that we're through all those doors, they're just our girls, and we love them, and they have been a wonderful addition to the family. So
awesome.
Interesting thing about both of them. So Ivy Ann, she's legally blind. You wouldn't really know it looking at her because she functions great. But she'll read her iPad like up here, Oh,
wow.
But she also has a really rare condition that makes her super light sensitive. So if she walks out in the middle of the day, she goes completely white blind. She can't see anything. So she will always have red tinted glasses, because for her, red is this very particular color of red is what blocks out the right amount of light. So with her, and us kind of having walked through her eye condition, that was one of these things we knew we could deal with another child. Saffron's very similar in eye condition. It's a totally different condition, but very similar, result. So, yeah, it's we think we're done though. We think you think 4 is it.
You thought that with 2, so.
If the call is there, we'll answer it, but we think we're done with 2 or with 2 options.
I mean, at this point, 2 more, and you take up 2 roller coaster cars.
Yeah. So, roller coasters are huge. I don't know if you've looked at one lately.
That's true.
Yeah, I love that as a unit of measure. It just becomes standard.
Well, so I grew up in a family of 5. You know, I had an older brother and younger sister. And you go to the restaurant to get a table, you need a table for 6, and they're always harder to get than a table for 4. So
Yeah.
maybe it was just that impatience of waiting so long in the line.
I was watching a game show earlier today, and it's a goofy. They've got comedians doing these different tasks, and for one of the tasks, they were supposed to make the tallest tower of lemons that they could, and the host gives the measurement, and he said we've decided to measure them in related to shoe sizes for children, and so so and so's tower was an 11 and a half, and such and such's tower was a 1, which in children's shoe sizes is actually a bigger shoe.
Yeah.
He said, so we kind of messed it up using this as a measurement system. We probably won't do it again. So now roller coasters is the next one.
So, are you on Twitter?
Twitter's the only thing I'm not on. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. So,
all right. Do you know the Briar Report? Have you visited the BriarReport.com or .org? It is a great, actually 2 websites. And Phil, who is one of the editors, maybe the founder of Briar Report, is pretty active on Twitter. And the other day, he was commenting on something from somebody else and was talking about how on a microwave, 90 is longer than 100.
Okay.
Right? Because it's 90 seconds, where 100 is 1 minute.
Yeah.
So not unlike the measuring of mounds of fruit with children's shoes. Never thought about that.
How long, so start to finish, what was the length of the adoption process for you guys?
I mean, I feel like when we said, all right, we think we want to adopt, to actually having our first child in our house, I think it was probably about 1.5 years, if I remember right.
Not bad.
It totally changes based on your requirements. If you're looking for an infant, it could be years and years and years and years. If you're willing and able to take in any child that has any condition, which is just a vast amount of things, it could be very quick. So it's all based on what you're capable to handle and willing to do. So for our girls, I think it was about 1.5 years.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So in doing that, China requires you to be in country for each time 2 weeks, one or 2 weeks. I can't remember now. But it was our first time in China. Beijing, China, major cities. It was completely overwhelming. Like prime example. So we Americans, we kind of feel like, this is my lane, this is my space. We have these things that are set up that are ours because everybody knows I was here first. Over there, it's like if I'm standing in the line at McDonald's and there is room for a body in front of me, someone will occupy that space. And it's not cutting, it's just opportunity, I guess. And so I could feel people breathing on my neck as I'm trying to order my Whopper. And I kind of felt like this whole culture is so rude. And I just realized they don't see it. They don't have that my right. And even in driving, it's just any little space is going to be taken up. And so the first time we went was kind of overwhelming. The second time was amazing because we kind of knew what to expect. We had plenty of adventures. It was a lot of fun.
So when you went back, was it, again, a couple of weeks in advance? And did you stay there?
Yeah, so we stayed. The nice thing about, at least the way Lifeline works, is they put you up in the nicest hotel they can find because they'll have concierge that speak English. You can get currency exchange. You can get all the help and support you need in big places like that, and they're not that expensive compared to like what we would spend here. So we stayed in these 5-star amazing hotels. I mean, just the foyer or whatever was, longer than you could see, with gold gilded. It was beautiful. So we would kind of set it out from there all the time. And there was always taxi services and everything we needed. So in fact, I'm a watch guy. So like I love watches. I've just recently got turned on to Invicta. My wife hates this watch because it's so gaudy, and it really is. It has dragons on it. But I told our guy, I said, listen, I know you have some amazing fake watches here, and I want to get one. You know, I mean, the first time there, I was literally going out on the streets at night, you know, looking for guys opening their coats up. And that's exactly how I got like 2 or 3 watches that time. So, this time they had closed all that street sales down, and so I said, where can I go get some fake watches? You know, and because I can't afford the good ones, you know. And he said, oh, you need to go to the watch and clock district. And my mouth just like, I'm like, there's a district? You know? Where is this magical place? You know, and so. Long story short, after several cabbies wouldn't take me there, one of them did, and I went with.
That's not a sign.
No, it was not.
Oh, sorry, we don't go there.
Yeah, fine. But we went. Me and another American friend went, and it was like a mall, an open mall with nothing but cases of watches. And if you said, I want a 1950 Rolex Submariner, whatever, you say it, and they will have it there, or they'll call someone on the phone and bring it to you, in any version of quality, you know. So, and so I had a blast. It's a big bargaining game. I love bargaining, you know, and we weren't sure we were going to get back alive, but we did, and it was a lot of fun.
I mean, you can get by with one kidney, right?
Yeah, you only need one. Yeah.
So, you know, years ago, my first foray into working for myself, I was a clock repairman for 5 years early on in my life. And I loved clocks, never had any interest in working on watches. They're just too intricate, but I love watches. Mm-hmm. And I've seen over the years in a number of magazines I used to subscribe to in the trade, all kinds of things about how to spot a fake Rolex. And every year they get better and better and better. And there are times where, you know, even the guys that are professionals and know them, they'll get stumped. Yeah. And there is definitely a wide range of quality, and it even comes down to the packaging too. Does it have the literature inside? And sometimes they'll put the fake watch into, and they'll pick those up on eBay and places like that, so they can put together a convincing counterfeit.
Yeah.
But did you see there was a guy on YouTube who just made a table? It's an acrylic table that's made of a bunch of fake Rolexes that he's basically woven together and sealed under acrylic. And, you know, one of the first comments was like, boy, I'd hate to see you when the batteries need to be changed, because they're all in, you know, that thick Rolex. But for the moment, it looks amazing.
Well, I get that fake Rolexes do hurt the industry, but there's no way I'm buying a real one. I can't afford it. So they're not losing business to me, you know. So that was kind of, I had to look at that. You know,
Seth and I have had this conversation with things like fake watches and stuff like that. I'm sorry, fake knives. Yeah. And, you know, it really does hurt the industry. But just like you, I'm not going to going to spend a year's salary on a timepiece. It's not going to happen. Yeah. But, you know, I'd spend some money on a fake version if it's not going to fall apart.
Yeah. And for me, I'm not even trying to fool anybody. I'll tell someone right away, this is a fake whatever. It's not about stigma. To me, it's about they are quality built. And I don't care if it says Rolex or whatever. I like a good automatic movement watch, just seeing the gears move. There's something about that mechanical nature, all the way back to railroad stopwatches. I adore them. So that's kind of my love for that. And there is a company, I think they're called Vortic, and they take those old railroad timepieces and they're making them into wristwatches now. And they're stunning. It's history brought into this world, and I love it. So
well, that's kind of my love for clocks. It goes back to, I remember my grandfather, my mom's dad, worked at a railroad in Laredo, Texas. And one of my early memories, and my folks have tried to help me place it, probably he was 3 years old, was going with my grandfather and going into an office, and there was what they call a regulator clock hanging on the wall. And it was at one time what they used to set the time for the entire station by. And I just stood and watched this giant pendulum swinging. And you think about, you get grandma and grandpa's old clock, and if it's still working or you can make it work, there's like this little life that's going on there that ties you back to the people that had it before you.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess it's sort of romantic in a way, but
absolutely. Well, that's the story of the Ball Watch too. If you've heard of that Ball Watch company, and if I ever get enough money to buy one, Ball Watch will be one of the first companies I look at. So if you haven't heard this, you hear someone say, "Oh, he's on the ball," Well, so that's an old train story. So, Ball Watch Company was approached with a problem that, hey, we've got trains coming here and they're colliding at some point because the watches are off. Not everybody has the same time, and so. If I'm getting the story right, Ball was tasked to create a timepiece and a setup that would be so accurate that they would alleviate these problems. So what they would do is the conductors would go, when they arrived, they'd look at the Ball watch on the like you're talking about, and they'd sync their watch with it, and then they'd be good. And it reduced the amount of collisions by some massive degree. So when they say they're on the ball, they're looking at their Ball watch, and so they're still in business today, and I just think it's an amazing story. So that is neat. Yeah, they're about a $2,500 to $5,000 watch to get you started, but they're beautiful. If you can find a broken one. Yeah, that's cool. Anybody in the chat there, Seth?
Not a soul.
So you want to see a few pipes?
Yes, please.
Can you see them well if I hold it up? I'll show you several. Let me see.
Well, along that, maybe you can pull one out too. Steam Dome asked, "What pipes have given you the hardest challenge?"
Well, I got one sitting right here.
Dr. Mike.
What? You know what that is?
An eyeball.
It's a pool cue.
It's a cue ball.
A cue ball, yeah.
So yeah, it's an eyeball. This is my Halloween pipe, and so pipe makers often do Halloween pipes, and a lot of times they're pumpkins or whatever. I wanted to make a pipe out of this cue ball for whatever reason. So imagine trying to put this cue ball into my 2-jaw chuck. It's and then spin it like 2,500 RPMs per minute or something like that. So this was a massive challenge. I had to build a whole wood structure just to hold the ball in place. And so what I did is I bored out the cue ball, which I didn't know what it was made of and how that would work. So it worked great. And then I dropped a briar sleeve or briar bowl into this right here. So that's actually briar. So you're smoking briar. You're not smoking cue ball, because who knows what that stuff is. And then I had to drill it and make the accent pieces. So that was actually a really hard pipe to make. And I probably will never make another one, but that was hard. Now you're on the ball. That's great. That's right. Here's kind of a unique one. What is that? Is that snake wood? It is briar. It's briar wood. So I made a box press cigar. Can you hold it back just a bit? Sorry, yeah. There we go. Is that better? Wow. Yeah, yep.
It's beautiful.
So I had seen cigar pipes before, and I didn't want to copy them, but I wanted one, so I made a box press. So that's how I made mine. So you turn it round, and then you pressed it in the box with several others. That's right. Yeah. It's a pretty good smoke, actually. The chamber goes about that deep, and if you're careful, it doesn't spill ash all over the carpet. But so that was a fun one. This is a kind of a recent one. You see that all right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is a bamboo Rhodesian-ish, but the stem on it is round. It's not flat. So like a hookah pipe. Yeah, it is. I don't know why I didn't want a flat one on this one, but I thought I would do it without. So that was the first one I'd ever done that with. I've gotten into a few church horns lately because I got a new drill bit. So this one is. Did you see that? Yeah. Yes. See the white on the stem? It's got all these swirls. This is made out of. So here's an interesting pipe. This one, this is black. It's actually grayish black, and it's called mortar wood. Oh yes. So mortar wood is when I lose it. Petrified. It's petrified. It got sunk down into a peat bog lost for thousands of years and then reclaimed, and so it's
Like
deprived of
fossilized
oxygen.
almost?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so it's deprived of oxygen and light, and this is the color that it ends up being. So that's not stained. That's the color it normally is, and it has just a beautiful grain. I wish you could see it real close, but so that's more
Did you sandblast that after the?
Yes, I did.
After carving it, okay.
There's somewhere behind me, but yeah, and that's the air to push it. Like snap on. This one is interesting. So this is a tomato. Kind of a squat tomato.
Or tomato.
Tomato. This one, like I said, I only kept the rejects. This one wasn't a reject, but this is an actual piece of ivory, and you can't sell ivory, so I got to keep it.
Sorry, honey, I used the ivory on this pipe. I have to keep it.
So yeah, this little piece of ivory, the piece that I took that from was like a $50 piece for this tiny little ring right here. That one turned out pretty good. This is really simple, but it's one of my favorite pipes. And I wish the light was better for it, but this is it looks like it has that tapered stem, but it doesn't. It's just fake that way. But this is a piece of copper right here that I actually got from the hardware store and made into a cap for it. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. So can you see the?
Wow. Oh. Yes.
Yeah.
This is a Osage orange, and I'm probably saying that wrong. But
in Ohio we say Osage.
Osage, I like it. So Osage orange. It was locally harvested. Really hard wood to cut.
Yeah.
It was tearing up my tools.
Yep.
And one of the last things I do is I'll hang the pipe up like this while it's finishing drying, and it fell off and cracked. So I kept this one. It was completely done, and then it cracked.
Well, yeah, I've turned some Osage orange, and it is hard to begin with, and it's very abrasive.
Yeah. It actually sands really well, but cutting is really hard.
So when you were full on pipe production, what percentage of the pipes you were selling were commission and custom versus ones you're making and then selling on your site?
Most of the time were commission pipes requests.
So in a situation like that, do you have to remake that pipe?
If someone asks for that particular pipe, you mean?
Yeah.
What I would tell them is I'll make it as close as I possibly can, but I want it to be unique, so it might turn out a little bit different. But what's weird is if you go to my website, actually, if you just search Devil Ants pipe, that's the Hatfield and McCoy pipe, you'll probably see my pipes. I've made a bunch of them because people ask for them all the time. And so there's all these different versions of them. And so I try to make those as close to, in fact, I have two in the house that are almost identical because people get real specific. I want it just like that. So, but that was the Kevin Costner show when he got real popular. And
so this is considered, Brian, a Devil Ants corn cob.
Yeah, I can see that. I got I did slow-mo shots of the video and everything just to get as much as I could. And honestly, from what I can tell, I think it was a kind of a broken pipe that was mangled up on the back end that he just chawed on. And so nobody really knows what that bit looks like. So I've done it all different ways based on what people are asking for.
So there's a guy who's active here on YouTube in the YouTube pipe community who is a descendant of Doc Hatfield.
Okay.
And there's now are your Devil Ants pipes made just out of briar? Do you use briar for the mouthpiece on it, or do you fit them?
I actually use ebonite for the mouthpiece.
Okay.
There are some pipes that are full briar. I don't like the idea of wet saliva on wood. I know you can protect it, but I think eventually it's going to go bad. So
yeah.
And people chew on their stems a lot. So yeah. And the other thing too is to make a pipe well. I'm giving stuff away here. The smoke hole is 530 seconds. At least that's what I use. So that's a 530 second hole. That's what most American carvers do.
Yeah.
But the time it gets here, though, it can't be 530 seconds because it would hit the top and bottom, right? Either that, you have a really thick bit. So you have to really widen out this part to make sure you have a full flow all the way through. If you did wood, it would just be a little bit harder to do that. Not that you couldn't, but you definitely can't bend it. So that's part of that. But
okay, no, that makes perfect sense. And Briscoe wanted us to talk about that because he knows that I have this pipe on my website, and he knows that you've made some Devil Lance pipes. So
yeah,
he's happy.
A lot of them.
He's happy that comment came up.
Yeah.
So it might be what we're talking about, but the question came up: is there a shape that a collector would identify as yours?
The Ramsey is probably one of what I would call a signature shape. The Ramsey, the way I make it anyway, not this one. No one would look at this one and say, "Oh, that's a Growley," but they would look at the white one and say, "Oh, that's a Growley pipe." I did a lot of Rhodesians, a lot of them because I like it. So what I've noticed as a maker is you actually notice nuances of pipes more than you do. I mean, you might know shapes as well, but you can see a nuance the way something is turned, like the way this is turned here.
I saw that shape on a couple of the pipes you were showing.
Yeah, you can see that and say, oh, yeah, I know that's his, because he does that all the time type of thing. And what it comes down to a lot of cases is, what do your tools do? Your tools are really making shape, and people have different tools, which makes different shapes. So I think nuances probably identify my pipes a lot. I do a lot of tomatoes. This is another huge tomato. That's a heavy pipe. But yeah, there's that shape there.
So we talked about you because of the FDA stopping production. Are you making pipes again, Brian?
I am, as I can, as I have time for. In fact, I have written the FDA directly 3 times and said, I see what's on your site. Can I make pipes? Just tell me, can I make pipes? And they'll send me a massive email back with hundreds of pages of links. And I've gone through them, and up until just recently, I've always kind of found that pipes were still listed. And so last time I looked, which was a few months ago, I can't find pipes listed as a component of smoking anywhere. So I don't know if they've removed it, if I'm just not finding it. But so if someone calls me, emails me, hits me up in Instagram and says, will you make me a pipe? I'm making them. But the leather business has taken over my time.
Yeah.
And it's more sustainable. There's a lot wider audience. My girls can help me with it. So pipes has gone from being business to hobby, which I'm completely fine with, and leather's gone from being business to business. So
yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I was excited to hear that you were making them again, and to see your Instagram feed now, seeing some pipes pop up again.
Yeah.
Really made me happy.
I appreciate that.
Well, I think we're getting long here. It's been almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's really been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
So, do you see yourself ever attending, if the pipe shows kick back up again, Chicago or any others, attending a pipe show?
I do. I might attend more as a buyer at this point than a maker, because I think it'd just be fun to walk around and see what everybody's doing. The pipe making community has just exploded, and there's some guys with some massive talent out there. It's really growing, so it's exciting. There's just some beautiful pipes, and some neat ideas and concepts. So I'd love to just go around and see those. But so I would be able to do that more easily than going with 30-some pipes to sell, because that takes a long time to come up with 30-some pipes.
Yeah, that's true. It's really an interesting experience, because you'll have some guys that are setting up and selling their collection, right? These old guys that are either getting out of smoking, or they got a couple pipes that they know they're going to hold on to, and the rest they're going to, they want to see someone else enjoying. And you'll see some of this new old stock that somebody found in a basement. Yeah. And it's just such a blast to see. On the other hand, it's a little weird for Seth and I, because again, I'm a corn cob pipe guy at the end of the day, right? So we'll walk through the show several times, but for me, it's more about getting out to the smoking tent or out on the patio and hanging out and meeting people and spending time together. That's been a lot of fun.
I will say, Pipe Show is where I got my first corncob pipe from.
Is it really?
Yeah. And the tents are amazing. I remember in a time when people are just so generous. They're opening up tins that are 40, 50 years old, and someone said, "Hey, here's a tin from tobacco where the leaf is extinct. You can't even get it anymore, and help yourself to it." So
yep.
It's just amazing how generous the pipe community is.
Well, that's been my experience too. And the whole thing about this tobacco, because of the FDA deeming, and because I don't sell tobacco, but technically, right, we were under the impression that is tobacco. I won't sample this unless we're sitting together, in which case you're going to smoke some of this. You're going to try it. And I always enjoy that. It's funny because I'll warn people, when we say it's Fruit Loopy, it is the fruitiest stuff you've ever smoked. And very few people have enjoyed it, but what's funny is the folks that enjoy it really enjoy it. So
I've got one like that. It's Peterson's Summertime, I think is what it's called. And it is the most bizarre smoke I think I've had. It's just, and most people don't like it, but it's very unique, kind of fruity like that. Hits you on your tongue weird. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Somebody said that they believe that it is probably a Dan tobacco, and being from Germany, that might make sense. And the tobacconist I'm buying from, I can't imagine that they are blending it in-house. But they have 6 tobaccos that are their own brand, and they're not letting anybody know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And I've not found it anywhere else. So
what would you say your island tobacco is? If you're stuck on an island, you only have one tobacco. What would you say your island tobacco is?
It's Lane 1Q.
Yeah.
I smoke tons of Lane 1Q. So I've got several pounds of it canned, which, there's folks that say that you can't do that aromatics will not store. And in fact, we opened some up that had been canned for 5 years, and we're like, actually it's not so great. And we did a video of us trying it, and we came to that conclusion. And then a few weeks later, I opened up another jar of it. Totally different experience.
Huh.
So the one we opened maybe wasn't sealed right or something.
Yeah.
Because I sealed up a whole flat of quartz that same day. So anyway, but I would say, yes, that's not ideal. You can get Lane 1Q anywhere, so just get it wherever you are and smoke it while it's fresh, and
True.
you're good to go. So, but I don't know, I probably have 20 tins of this, and because it's, sealed in the original package, it has always been good every time I've opened it. So.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I better get back to Germany, because now that I see I'm down to about 20, it's making me nervous.
Yeah, wait till they go out of business, then you really get nervous.
Somebody told me that they went out of business, and I forget who it was, but somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to be going over to Germany, and where is this shop?" And I told them where it was. It's the middle of nowhere in the Black Forest, and he had a friend who lives in the area, and his friend tried to find it and said, "No, they're out of business." So he reports back to me, "They're gone." It's like, "Oh, you're kidding me." Well, then a couple of weeks later, his friend sends him a couple tins and said, "I was just pulling your chain."
Oh, my God.
They're still in business. So it's very cruel.
That's not a good joke.
No, it's not. Not a good joke at all. Hey, I don't know if you said this. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan, actually.
In Michigan?
I grew up in Jackson, Michigan, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, if I'd have known that, we would have made this call a lot shorter.
Yeah, I don't get back there much. I went from Michigan to Ohio to Colorado to Houston to here. So
oh my goodness.
I got south as fast as I could, I guess. But
where were you in Colorado?
Colorado Springs. Okay. Beautiful little town to live in. Well, it was little back then. Now it's huge. So yeah, gorgeous.
Were you there when smog was in season?
No, it wasn't really a thing back then.
Oh, lucky.
I was there for 9/11, so whenever that was,
2001.
Yeah.
It was way bad when I was a kid. My dad's family is in Denver, and so we would visit, and it was just horrible. And then they cleaned it up quite a bit, and just sometimes a year you get this big smog cloud that'll flow south down to Colorado Springs and work its way up north towards Boulder, and but for the most part, it's much cleaner out there now. Thank goodness.
Well, it's grown a ton, but if I had a second home, I think it would be there.
Not a bad place to be. All right. Hey, Brian, thanks again. It was such a pleasure. We wish you all the success in the world. We'll be linking in our doobly-doo for anybody who wants to get quickly over to your websites and to check you out on Instagram and anywhere else. Anywhere else you would send us?
Instagram and our website's the best two places.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Brian, and thank your family for letting us borrow you for a couple hours.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Hey, for the rest of you guys, thanks for joining us. Make it a great day, and we will see you next Tuesday night.
All right, see ya.